I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Seated. I skipped a part?
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. Okay. Sorry for the part that I skipped.
Wasn't even a controversial one.
Yeah, really? I don't know. Okay, sorry. I'll let someone else lead next time. Where are those Cub Scouts? That's what we need. Okay. Item 2, approval of the agenda. It's recommended that the board approve the agenda. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on this item, which is just the approval of the agenda, please raise your hand or use the raised hand feature on Zoom. Okay, seeing none, board, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor will vote. Please say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye and the motion passes. We're on to item 3, study session. 3A is the study session on the Mandarin Immersion Program. We were given an executive summary. Since there is no presentation tonight, right? We don't.
Well, actually, Christina put together a very brief presentation. So if you can, my thought for that is that if, while she's talking, if you ask questions, that would be good, like you can interrupt, you know what I mean? So it's more discussion.
I'm wondering if we should do public comment first still then?
Then yes.
Okay, so since our presentation will be interactive, we're gonna do the public comment for Mandarin Immersion now. So please use the raised hand feature, or if you're in person here to comment on Mandarin Immersion, please hand me a speaker card. So please use the raised hand feature if you'd like to comment on this. Oh, okay, 2 speaker cards. Thank you. Are there any online as well?
There's none.
There's none online. Okay. Is there any particular order of the speakers? Would you like to go first? Okay. Are you Tina or
Yes.
Elizabeth? Okay, great. So just before you begin, please note that time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes altogether for public comments. Speakers are asked to give their name and affiliation so that an accurate record is reflected in the minutes. Per our board bylaw 932(3), the board shall not prohibit public criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, acts, or omissions. During public comment, we encourage speakers to discuss issues with civility, to treat people whose opinions differ from their own with respect, and to focus on ideas, policies, and values. So Tina Chang, you may go ahead. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Hello board, hello. I've spoken before in support of the Mandarin Immersion Program, so I know that you're all aware. Just, I'm a mother in the Sunnyvale School District. I have 1 child currently at Ellis, and I have 2 coming up. They're twin boys, and they're coming to kindergarten next year. So, I just wanted to let you know, I read through the document that was created, and I, understand there's a lot of challenges, in order to implement a Mandarin Immersion Program, but that, there's still a lot of community support for it. There's, people have asked me, kind of when is Sunnyvale deciding on it, like I'm looking to buy a house, and so just, I want the board to know that there's just a lot of support for it. And even if, it doesn't happen next year for my kids, I still, support it full-heartedly, being implemented, whichever year is possible, because it's just, I think, a very worthy endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the next speaker we have is Elizabeth Viega.
Yes. Apologies, I spelled mine out, but the handwriting is a little bit dodgy.
Oh, sorry.
Good evening, everybody. To be honest, I'll be very brief. I just want to sort of repeat Tina's sentiments. I'm also obviously a resident in Sunnyvale, and my daughter next year should be going to Ellis, and I have a daughter who should be going in 2 years after that, depending on TK. So I just want to say, I believe wholeheartedly in the program. I have likewise also read through the executive summary, and I appreciate there are many, many challenges and many things that would need to be addressed. But we as a parent group are here and willing to help as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment on the Mandarin Immersion Program? Please use the raise hand feature or submit a card. No? Okay, thank you. Okay. Great, Ms. Valentine, thank you.
Yeah, good evening, board, members of the public and colleagues. Thank you. We're pleased to be able to start the study session on Mandarin immersion. We put together a quick slide deck, and like Mike said, we'd like this to be interactive, so please let us know if you want us to stop and pause or if you have questions. But this is the culmination of like a little over 60 hours worth of work, mostly by Kay Lee and myself, but also working with our colleagues in the Juntos program, colleagues outside of the district, and also our consultant from CAVE. And I just realized I should talk a little bit slower for our translators. But we thought,
I'll start it first.
thank you. But we thought it was important to first start with who we are, since in the context of dual language, our past professional experiences lead us to deeply understand both the benefits and also the challenges of launching. So I'm Christina Valentine, but I'm also the founding principal of the Juntos program, Sunnyvale's first bilingual program.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Kay Lee. I'm actually quite new to the district, so I wanted to give a brief background of my experience. I'm actually highly proficient in 5 languages and have a lot of excitement about languages, so I'm very thrilled that Sunnyvale is exploring a Mandarin immersion program. I have a B-Clat in Spanish, I speak Cantonese, I have a B-Clat in Mandarin. I also speak a little bit of English, and I want to apologize in advance if my responses aren't as eloquent as Christina's. And lately, I've been dabbling in Sunnyvale School District acronyms. I'm very proud of myself for being quite fluent in understanding how, being able to like follow along in conversation. So once again, languages have always been a passion to provide a lot of power and access, and also opportunities for personally to travel all over the world and be more connected with different cultures and groups of people, and also professionally, where I've had a chance to be a dual language immersion Mandarin teacher in Hayward, and also at Stark King in San Francisco Unified. And prior to coming to Sunnyvale, I was a Cantonese immersion dual language principal. So definitely have a lot of perspective around the benefits of a dual language immersion program, but also personal experiences of the challenges that do come up and the realities that do come up with implementing a quality dual language immersion program. So we'll be discussing more of that in this brief recap presentation.
I'll just interrupt to say, it sounds like we have a really great team who's like leading this up, right?
Thank you. So our charge was to really provide an executive summary that we thought was a well-rounded view of dual language programs, specifically Mandarin. So we hope that we presented both all the benefits of dual language programs. Kay and I both have experience with dual language programs, as well as the challenges that we pulled from our experiences with other groups. We're only highlighting some sections of the executive summary, so they're here, and I know that it was a comprehensive document. Just to recap our timeline. So in 2019, we had a group of interested parents. I hear that there's still interested parents here tonight. And then in the meantime, we also had a COVID-19 pandemic where we had a shelter in place. And we also brought our students successfully back to our campuses last year. So that's where we are currently today in this space together. I think it's important to highlight, this isn't an executive summary, in this format, but in Sunnyvale, outside of English, Spanish is our most spoken language with 74.5% of our students speaking Spanish. Mandarin is our second most spoken language after Spanish with 12.8% of our students speaking Mandarin. And this is important to note because on
Christina,
slides,
just to clarify, that's
thank you,
74% of the,
non-English speakers.
yeah, so it's not 74% of our students speak Spanish.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Outside of English, yeah.
I just clarify that because I haven't heard it a few times for me.
Yeah, I think the way you phrased it was a lot better. And this is important when we get to slide 6, when Kay talks about program structure, because we do, in dual language programs, we are aiming for a specific makeup of the student population. As you know, we do have the Juntos program. It started at San Miguel School. Our students are currently at 7th grade at Columbia Middle School. And I just want to say we're very proud of the work that we've done in launching and also maintaining the success of the program. Every year that we work with Juntos, every year that we launch a new grade level, we're constantly in the design process, which Kay will talk about. But we're constantly working on making sure that we're meeting the needs and like being as proactive as possible with the Juntos program. Okay.
So in terms of a ideal Mandarin immersion program structure, there's one way and two way, and this is one that highlight ideally we would have a two-way program where a third of our students enrolled in the program are Mandarin native speakers, a third are English only speakers, and a third have some kind of exposure, so they're multilingual.
To Mandarin or to any language?
To Mandarin, yes. And then we would start out at the bottom of our program model and open up a kinder classroom. And majority of the time would be in the target language, so 80% of the time would be in Mandarin, so that students have as much exposure from an early start. And by the time they reach 4th and 5th grade, it would be a 50-50 model. And so just to highlight some benefits, I know there are pages around this, wanted to give you some anecdotal recaps of being bilingual and biliteracy and how advantageous that is. Last year, I remember going to a community event where a lot of our Juntos students actually presented with a lot of pride and felt that cultural affirmation, not only that they're able to speak in a colloquial fashion with their family, but also make presentations in front of their peers and family members and community members. So having that academic language and biliteracy foundation has been an unparalleled gift and foundation for our students. Also, Mandarin is a level 5 language according to the Foreign Service Institute, which is an organization that trains all American diplomats. So Spanish is considered a level 1 in terms of it being able to access the language. Chinese is a level 5. So the earlier we start these opportunities for students, the more beneficial definitely be. And there's a lot of research around the cognitive advantage of being bilingual. So there's a couple of charts that you saw inside the executive summary around how white students that are in a dual language program, English language learners that are in a dual immersion program, African American students that were, and how they performed their peers in every instance. There also are some challenges, right, to creating a very quality immersion program that's sustainable. So one of the biggest, I think, equity traps is maintaining school culture and identity. So it can easily feel like one school, but there are two different programs, and so they're sometimes different PTA forms or different resources get allocated. And so it's really important to just continue to maintain that school culture and identity and make sure that it is one school despite their two programs. Curriculum, there's a lot less curriculum in Mandarin. I know for our Juntos program, there were definitely more options. And so we do have to be creative with what's available. In the past, I know we've like imported a lot of books from China and visited some schools abroad. However, the model and the approach in teaching, there's some discrepancies. So there's just a lot that needs to be created internally. And that takes a lot of time, effort, and resources. Same with assessments and recruitment and hiring and retention. As we connect with more universities, it sounds like our pipeline to recruit Mandarin immersion teachers are dwindling. In the past, we've gone as far as providing work visas to teachers in China, but once again, there's a cultural difference in the approach and pedagogy. So just something to be aware of in terms of.
Can I jump in and ask a
Yeah.
question? Do you guys know, maybe you don't? I thought I had it on it, actually it's not. Thank you. What did my not it said like a lot of the colleges and universities are not like creating the pipeline anymore, and that was a little bit surprising to me. Do you guys know at all like why it is decreasing instead of increasing? Do we know why that's happening?
If you don't, Jeremy's online and Mary Beth's here. I don't know if anyone knows.
Well, it's really it's like
Yeah.
the colleges and universities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can speak most closely to Stanford's program, because we have a partnership, but Stanford has decreased their Mandarin BCLAD administration just because they have had a significant decrease in the candidates that came in. So like at one, if you think about the pool of, Mary Beth, please jump in, but typically there's like, say 60 teachers that we could recruit from. Out of those 60 total, like maybe 10 are BCLAD, and out of those 10, most of them are Spanish. At one point in time, they may have like 2 Mandarin BCLAD candidates, and then over the last 5 years, it's gone down to 0.
Yeah. So I'm just being interesting, why are those less candidates, right? So then they're having less. Just that is a bummer, right? It makes it much harder.
Well, we've heard there's less candidates in general, like
That's true. Thank you.
candidates.
Maybe
That's also true.
That's also part of it, and then also with COVID lockdowns and things, it's kind of shut things down, so.
Probably funding is a portion of that as well, as departments are kind of reorganizing priorities.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Can I add, Dr. Lee?
I'm good.
Last but not least is professional development, just having to make sure there's a separate differentiated professional development allocated for a different program. Wanting to include, when we see this a lot in Juntos, where we definitely want to include our Juntos teachers. For example, we're right now working on math and integrated ELD. However, a lot of our Juntos teachers teach math in Spanish, so that those integrated ELD strategies and techniques can transfer over, but then they're also thinking about how that integrates into their Spanish language development time, not in English language development time. So there's just some nuances that we have to definitely be aware of and not overlook to make sure that we're being inclusive. Facilities and finances, pretty self-explanatory in terms of needing space and building out more classrooms as the program grows.
I don't think so. So just before we turn this over for a total discussion and answering questions, we did work with CABE, the California Association for Bilingual Education. I just wanted to highlight the strength of this organization. Actually, nationally and internationally, CABE is more well respected than NAPE. Please don't tell NAPE I said that, which is the National Association for Bilingual Education, because California is so predominantly situated in bilingual education. So CABE recommends a 2-year launch period, planning prior to launch. That is what we had during Juntos. And also they know that districts have launched in a year. So I wanted to put that out there. They also just want to make sure that districts who launch dual language programs have widespread support at all levels. So board, cabinet levels across the district office departments, as well as the the leadership at the school site, the teachers, classified staff, that it's pervasive throughout the organization. And then last, that districts go in to dual language programs knowing the resources that will be needed to support and maintain the program. So there's one part about launching a dual language program, and the other part is maintaining and ensuring its success over time. So we want to make sure that we would have that in the same way that we've worked really hard to launch that with Juntos. We'd want that for our Mandarin Immersion program. So with all that brief summary of information, here are some potential discussion questions for the board, which is, I don't have to read them to you, you can read them yourself. And Kay and I will be here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Christine.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so questions, so the questions just in general are, we can start by talking about how the alignment with the goals for the Mandarin, with the district goals, starting and maintaining a Mandarin immersion program, or we could start talking about the challenges or the opportunities, or we can start talking about next steps. But I think these are pretty much in a really good order as they are. So I don't know if, so I made a note for myself that it was just really talking about alignment with goals and challenges and opportunities and next steps. Like, so our goal is to basically just discuss this for about the next half hour, and then I would imagine that we would be continuing the conversation after that. So is there a way that we could get Nancy on the screen again? So there you are, hi. Because we were just looking at the goals for a minute there. Okay, so does anyone wanna maybe we could just talk a little bit about how we see the program maybe aligning with district goals or not aligning with district goals, or what we're seeing. Does anyone wanna start talking about that?
Well, it is only about alignment. I think it does align with what we believe. Multiculturalism, equity, more opportunities. In that point, I think we are pretty much covered.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we see also the challenges and the challenges. I was looking, there is a part when you're talking about the budget per classroom. No.
Speak up because
Oh, okay.
the interpreter can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. So that would be the challenging for this year, if we can, how can we lower that? The alignment with our principles, I think, and our mission and vision is there. That's what we have been talking about.
But you know, one of the issues, like when you're talking about the cost, is we don't really have the new numbers yet, right? Like we don't have an understanding, like the numbers that we have in here for like enrollment, or facilities available, if the next step we said, oh, pick a site, there's no way we could do that right now because we don't know between the lowering class sizes and the new TK and all the moving around, right? Like there's a lot of pieces.
Yeah, we'll get a clearer picture. It's funny, we're in a strange point, like we're finally landed from COVID, if I can use that metaphor, right? So, and now we're starting to continuing some decreased enrollment in some places, some rapid increase in enrollment in other places. We're having more newcomers come in. And this extra thing that's been thrown on us in the last couple of years is transitional kindergarten, like you referenced. So our demographer is on the same cycle as he always is. He's right now working on he usually likes to do like 5 years out. It gives you a good snapshot of what we can anticipate. And he's been pretty good. And I can see Jeremy's there as well. So he might want to comment on this. So we will have those numbers, and then we can start looking at facilities over the next several months. And I've already talked to my team about, we need to, as Ellis comes up, here are some of the factors. So as Ellis comes up, we need to look at, should we put special programs back on the Ellis campus that we took away because it was under construction, right? And then we need to start planning for a whole new grade level of TK at each of the elementary schools. So we're planning for that while we're getting the demographer's report. And was there something you wanted to add, Mr. Nishihara?
Yes, I just wanted to, can everyone hear me just to make sure?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, we pushed the demographer to actually get us the information sooner. And in addition to the TK grade level, we're also making meaning of the SDC on mainstream roster MOU. So there's a lot more variables that we're juggling with. Last year's demographer's report was only 1 year out. We're eagerly anticipating this one because it'll show us a 3-year out and a 5-year out. So.
And I think also the other cost that I saw noted, but there was nothing, no cost attached to it, is just all the other initiatives that we have going on because the test scores have revealed so much red. Like what used to be, we were talking about it at the board office hours the other night or the other morning. Strange calendar. Anyway, so it's all blurred together, but this idea that the students who are far behind, it used to be this, on the chart where you'd see how kids were doing, there were students who were at grade level and above grade level, and then there were students who were struggling, approaching grade level, and then there were students who were in this red group where they were just far below grade level and really struggling. And when we looked at all the data recently, it's all red. So that's part of coming back from the pandemic, and that's a lot of the work that the district has to do with, that's a priority right now. We can't just let those children hang out in the red, like that just can't happen. So it's not that, so I do understand that there are these competing needs for resources and just time with our staff. So like for me personally, though, like I really do believe in the Juntos program that we have. I find a lot of value in it. I feel bad for all the kids who can't be in it, I just think it's amazing. And, I do want to be supportive of families who really want to do something that's pushing us to be more innovative and to do that. I just, I'm just also aware of those other pressures. So I think, I don't know, that's just like where that's going around in my mind. And then also it's going around in my mind is the issues that when this was all brought up before, I don't want to make the Mandarin speaking community go through more hoops than other people. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be so much harder for them to launch this kernel, this like gem that could be there for our kids in the district. It could be really great. I don't want to miss that because we're busy and exhausted and like really trying to do all this other work. So I don't want to make it, I don't want to discriminate against them in some way, because I understand it's part of where they fall in time, but it's also like where we are. I don't know. So I feel like they got a little hammered the last time when they were in the public comments, for the what was that, the word cloud or whatever Leah was running. And my next door neighbor was very sensitive to that. She said, "Oh, I had no idea people felt that way about me." And so I feel like with everything that's been going on with, Asian hate and all this other stuff, I want to make sure that no matter what happens, whether Mandarin immersion program goes forward or not, that we find a way to connect with the community and to build and support more language learning and more cultural positivity. Nancy, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah. So if you talk about what our goals are, what our interests are, we've talked about family engagement. And so regardless, I want to make sure that we can hear what families have to say and how can we get them more engaged in the process. But we've also had a value of biliteracy and bilingualism across the board for all heritage speakers, not just Mandarin. And so I would like to see more, I would like to see us with more intentionality talk about those steps and foster additional, the resources would be the same if we're talking about what is the academic language needs for each grade level, what are the ways that you can support your child in taking these gateway grade level achievement tests and make that much more visible in the district as a whole. There may be people who are interested in Mandarin but don't have the personal commitment that it takes from families to be a part of a program, but they may want to still honor and cherish language acquisition of a heritage language or an adopted language other than their primary language that's spoken at home. So I want to, so while we're talking about that, it's one of the, it raises a bigger question of equity too. And making sure that everybody's getting good first primary teaching so that they can be, to your point, Bridget, not far behind, but be able to academically be successful in English, in the language and competencies that we are supposed to be fostering and supporting. So there's that. So it's a matter of once again allocation of resources. There's only so much that you can do at any one given time, and to me, it's a bandwidth issue. We can explore, you know, we can go ahead and explore some things, but I don't think that we're able to implement anything at this particular point in time because we don't, because of the moving pieces, because of the reality of the time that it would take. And I want to make sure that we're being equitable to all the students in the district in having our core focus be maintained and not dilute that unintentionally by starting a program that we may not be able to implement with fidelity in the short term or the long term. We just don't have that. There's some data pieces missing. And I acknowledge that is going to take some time to get, but it's a challenge, especially as we're going into a shrinking budgetary outlook. I just want to be super mindful. We had some stops and starts with Juntos. It took some time to do. So I would also like.
I have a question on this. So how many stops and starts do you have with Juntos? What do you mean? Like with Juntos, did that take several years or?
She said
So Juntos, we planned for 2 years before we launched the program.
But when she said you had some stops and starts with Juntos, does that mean like before, like when you were thinking of doing Juntos, did it take a while before then, or is that what you're saying, Nancy, or?
Yeah, when it came to the board, there was an exploration, and then there was readiness at the site, readiness of leaders. So while you took 2 years to plan, there was a lot of pre-planning that happened to make sure that everything was kind of all fitting and going forward. So from the board perspective, we were talking about it longer than just the implementation of 2 years for planning to move forward, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. I can add on to what Nancy shared. Because when Juntos started in earnest with planning, Anita Herman at the time said, "Oh, this has been a long-term goal of the board, of me as a board member. And I think her hope had been that there had been a language immersion program for her own child at the time. And when Juntos started in earnest in planning, I think her child was much older than entering into the program. So just to share, to corroborate what Nancy is sharing.
Thanks for that clarification.
So at the beginning, you were saying that you are something about other languages that, I mean, and the first part of your speech, you say something about other languages and other populations. Can you expand on that? Okay, well, doesn't matter.
No, you're talking.
Me?
That doesn't matter. I have a quick question. Three third grades make to fourth and fifth, isn't it? So because they have
Do the math.
third population.
So
or you need
20
24 to 32.
Or you need at least two third grades to make one fourth and fifth.
Sorry, I used to be able to do this math
It
really
wouldn't be
fast.
quite exactly right.
Yeah.
But yes,
So-
but
Okay,
you need
so
more smaller, some of the younger grade
You get
classes.
like it's a class and a half.
in
Class
that
and a
way,
half.
how many TKs we need to make one kindergarten? Because those are pre-K and TK. They are the same, one TK class is the same population and. Okay,
Well,
so
eventually
we should-
TK are gonna be 20 to 1 and kindergarten can be 20 to 1,
Oh,
but roughly the same.
roughly the same. And pre-K?
That's
I
just,
mean,
that's
if you
just
have to
different.
do pre-K in 2 years,
Well,
how many classrooms do we need?
Pre-K is
I mean, I'm
one-
just trying to do the math in
Yeah,
how
pre-K
big
is
the
1 to
school needs to
12
be now.
generally.
But pre-K would not be a part of the language. Right. That would start, would it start at TK or would it start at kinder?
Probably start at TK, which is another thing we need to think about with all of our programs of choice. I think we really need to intend for them to start at TK, so that's add another grade to our.
So Juntos currently doesn't start at TK, Juntos starts at kinder.
Right.
But we would probably want language schools to start at TK.
I don't think so.
So I think, you know, when you were giving the presentation, the way I read it in the packet, it seemed like it was portrayed as a challenge that it's such a hard language, right? But when I heard you speaking, you know, I think the way that you framed it was similar to how I was thinking, was like, if it's a really hard language, you'd want children to start younger, and it would be very difficult for someone who did not have formal training to pass a seal of biliteracy at each of those gateways. Like, you would need some formal instruction, you know, either privately, like I think Nancy was talking about partnering with families, because we have such a diverse general population with many languages, and to really educate people on how they could get their own child towards a seal of biliteracy and perhaps have some supports, but not have
Like supporting bilingualism more
Supporting
generally.
much more
in different
generally,
creative ways.
informatively, or like just supporting it in general. But like for me, I feel like if we are gonna, you know, if Mandarin is the next language down and it is an international language, I think it would be, like I said, I mean, I think it would be a gem. It's just that we would have to, you know, we would have to decide to put a little more exploration and energy, and maybe be a little more patient and see, you know, where it goes. Like before we started planning in earnest, maybe we could do some more research or make the conditions better for it in some way, you know, because I don't want to lose the opportunity for bilingual Asian language, honestly. Like, I think it would be, not just because it's a cool thing and shiny thing, but because I think it would really benefit our students. It could be a really fantastic program. So that could benefit a lot of kids. But the issue is the, you know, like the resources that we have right now, do they match up? And is there, I guess what I'm saying, is there any way we could allocate some resources to keep the door open if it's not a good fit right now?
Yeah,
Hey, and I haven't had a chance to finish sharing.
Yeah,
my
I'm
thoughts
sorry.
about this.
Yeah.
It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Just so as I kind of, was thinking about the question of alignment and misalignment, I think we have, both are actually true, right? I think it depends on what goals and priority pieces of our district we're looking at, right? So if you look at, I don't remember if it's the mission or the vision, but one of those, right? We literally talk about being globally minded learners, and there's another piece I can't remember exactly that I think, you know, like, then you'd answer yes, this fits in with it, right? And I think about kind of what Isabel had said about the piece, like, we celebrate like different cultures and we think it's assets and we like, right? And so from that perspective, I would say, yes, absolutely, it is aligned. But then when we think about, I think this is kind of what you were saying, Bridget, earlier too, is like when we think about the specific areas that we are focusing on right now, then I would say it's actually not aligned. Because if, right, like the groups that we're wanting to focus on right now, and right, these kids who are like far behind, we're already behind, and then COVID even farther behind, are most likely, I'm not sure, but are most likely not the students who would go into a management immersion program. And so I think from that perspective, it's not aligned, right? So that's just kind of answering that question. And then I think the second question with the cost and kind of what Nancy said was the helpful reminder. Our budget has increased so hugely. I don't know if that's even a word or I'm making it up.
Sort of.
In the last few years, right? We just keep going up and up. But in reality, it's probably going to drop. If it doesn't drop, we're not going to keep seeing these huge increases, right? And so that idea of starting something in the next few years that will significantly increase our costs when our budget will probably not significantly increase, that feels a little bit not fiscally responsible, right? Like, so anyway, and I think I'm saying that I'm torn, right? Like, I love this idea. Maybe there are ways, like I liked Nancy's piece about being creative, like let's support families. Are there other things that wouldn't take as much time and as a whole management immersion program school would, but ways that we can say, hey, we value our students learning different languages, and here are some ways we can support them.
Can I?
Yeah.
When you're ready, I can put a little context to budget. If I can. So right now, we're in during this year, one of our goals this year is to look at all of the interventions that we're doing and identifying which ones are effective and which ones are less effective, because we will not have the same amount of money to do program next year as we do this year, because we're still using COVID money for the short.
The extra COVID money, more than just our regular
The
budget.
one-time money.
So our stance right now is evaluating, and with knowing that we're going to have to decrease program, but focusing on what works. However, at the same time, we are in a position where we don't have to do it all at once. We can do it slowly, and if we're being honest. And we still need to plan to be innovative. Right? So that's like, I'm saying a lot of different things, but I think you're getting the context, right? Like, overall, we do need to make decisions about decreasing program, but we do want to be open to new effective programs. But any new effective program we choose means we're going to have to decrease more someplace else, because it's a zero-sum game, if that makes sense. It's hard.
Well, I'm really interested to see what the demographer says as well, because I think that like that would give us information about facilities and numbers of kids, right? Like, so I mean, I guess I just don't want to, I completely agree with what you said, Michelle, and I really appreciate that. And I just do feel like, and I wouldn't want to start a program and say to people like, yeah, we're going to start this amazing thing, and then like have to just strip resources away from it and like not make it fail, but like make it really hard for the people running the program. Like, yeah, you don't get a TOSA, and PS, you're not going to get this, and like just kind of because we'd be pulling back other supports. So, but I'm really thinking that the Mandarin piece in general is just because it's a language that just takes so much time to work on. I don't know that like a club or something would ever do it. It would have to be just supporting families who are doing it. So I'm still hopeful that, we could get some more information, and I don't know. I mean, I did hear.
So Bridget, what
Yeah.
more, like, I mean, I think,
Yeah.
this is like me just like
Yeah.
assuming, right? So like my assumption is that you and I feel very similar, like we would love it, but like it's probably, if we're being honest, like not really a great fit, but it sounds like you're being a little more hopeful than I am, and I'm being a little more realistic, like what more information do you want, right? Like, I'm not saying hopefully it's not bad, right? But like what more information would actually be helpful?
Well, I think it's because I was such a part of the Fairwood Explorer program, honestly. Like, I think that if Fairwood Explorer had not come in and said, we want to think about teaching school a totally different way, like my teaching experience would have been really different, like, I mean, I had 20 to 24 parents working in my classroom every week. I had small groups every day. Like, I had project-based learning we put on place. Like, we did all sorts of stuff, and like every classroom did that. And now it's like a whole school doing that with neighborhood kids, and you don't have to, like they encourage people and they are trying to get people to do it. But like initially they said it couldn't be done. Like, the neighborhood parents could never do this program. And you know what? They actually can, and they do. And so I just feel like that's the difference for me, I think, is because I was a teacher in that program, and I just, and also I'm really thinking about that Juntos data in my mind is like sticking there a little bit. And those are the two highly family engaged, high family engagement things. And honestly, like we reinvented school. I know it was a crushing thing. We reinvented school. Everyone said, oh, you can't reinvent school. You need 20, 25 years on the board to do that. They said that in my new board member training. They said, buckle up, it's gonna be 25 years before you get anything changed. And during the pandemic, we changed it like 8 times. It was so painful.
And each school had different programs,
Yeah, and it's like, it was nuts. Let's not do that again. But I guess what I'm saying is like, if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that we can do this stuff. And it's not all or nothing, and it doesn't have to be status quo. And that, like, and I think there is a hunger from parents to be super engaged. And so, like, my tendency, like as a long-term parent volunteer, is to say, look, if someone wants to do something and they have that energy, like, I want to support that. I want to harness that. So that's where I'm coming from. It's not like I'm, and I did read the update from CSBA that said that, like, oh, Governor Newsom is now like banging on the door saying like, oh, we're gonna have a 1.8 billion less for California education. It could be 6 billion less. So, it's like everyone get ready to have zero money. So, I'm not a crazy person, but I just like, that's where I'm coming from on this,
So what's the additional information though that you're wanting?
So I think the additional information for me is I really do want to see if like we have more classrooms available than we are expecting. Because if they said like the last time, the 2020 data said like, oh, for Ellis, you just need to like put in one classroom here and one classroom in the upper grades, and they got plenty of room. And now it sounds like they might not have plenty of room. And maybe we heard all about declining enrollment, but then like now we're having other groups come in and we're having a new grade level. So I don't really understand the numbers. Right. So that's the information I would like.
And I think we can plan on if it's, it sounds like this is something the board would like to see, just kind of an overview of classroom use.
Just in general.
Along with the demographer, like how is TK, well, actually, that goes along with the demographer and it goes along with our UPK plan, which we're implementing. So we're doing that.
Oh my
anyway.
God.
Yeah, no, I like, and at the beginning of the school year, at the end of last school year, we were talking a lot about innovation, and we were having those classes about looking at things from a different point of view and trying to do something new. And as you were explaining about the family involvement, I was thinking that maybe because we do have the right leadership, I mean, we do have great example here of people who can do amazing things, and maybe we can find a way to easy our way into that program. Maybe we don't have money after the storm. I think we're still having floods everywhere and buildings to rebuild and things like that, but we might have not that far along. But there might be a way to not let it go, but keep studying it and finding other ways to support the families who run this program.
Yeah, so Bridget, trust me, the nugget has still been here. I've invited the conversation multiple times. CSBA has been, they will have Mandarin immersion programs highlighted at various different points of time. It is something that I've held as a value. It's a matter of resources. It's a journey. So I hear what you're saying, and that's the reason why I said there's lots of stops and starts. It doesn't mean that you don't lose the vision. It just may take you longer to get there than you ever imagined. So I guess the other thing that I would like to know about is what kind of enriching programs can we offer in partnerships with other groups and organizations to show that we're valuing bilingualism, and what current offerings do we have as far as language exploration wheels or cultural exploration at the different school sites?
Yeah, and thank you. And I know we are gonna close, and I'll let everybody have another minute to just say a closing thought. But as you were saying that, I was thinking, one of the things about programs that are, building momentum of programs, like we heard from, where was that? It was in Los Angeles. It was a big district in LA, but Christina was talking to us about offering summer programs that would build interest into other, and then eventually it became a strand. First, she was talking about electives in middle schools, but I almost wonder if there were other ways that we could, build some language competency or language explorations for our students, and
So that reminded me, I think one of the summers, maybe the summer before COVID, I think there was a summer Hindu.
right?
Yes, I think we did it
At the summer school.
2 years.
Yeah, so in the past, we've offered summer language programs, both in Mandarin and also in Hindi. And that was in partnership with Stanford. Since that time, they've they've reduced their world language program. But it is definitely something that we can bring up with Ruth Ann. I know we did our summer school presentation, so we're always working to think outside the box.
That sounds like a good way to explore the program with the summer option, maybe
And maybe even, or some sort of after school thing or something that we could start. I know Cherry Chase had a French club and a Hindi club for a while, and I think we could.
Wasn't Stanley directing a school in Cupertino, was an evening school for Chinese that functioned in one of the school facilities?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
another initiative that we can take in the meantime.
yeah, because I have in all these discussions over the last couple of years, I have heard a lot of parents talking about foreign language in general, but I think, I think it's important to have other representation, like the Asian language.
I don't know if you're gonna be heard right now.
Oh, I was just saying, I think it's important to have a representation for Asian language, and Mandarin has a fair amount of speakers. So.
And worldwide, it's a language that is
That's
used a lot, right?
Yes. So, okay, well, I think that, did you want to say anything before we close out the discussion for the evening? Isabel, do you have any final thoughts? We have like 2 or 3 minutes left.
It definitely aligns with what we believe and what we are and what we keep talking about. It aligns with our ethics statement, it aligns with our mission, our vision. However, the challenges at this particular juncture seem a little bit too big with so many students on the red, and we still haven't recovered, probably a recession coming, lower budgets. But we have the right team, we have the will, we have an important part of our population that supports us, and we might have an innovative solution in the meantime until we are completely recovered and we can go full with the program.
That seems like a good summary
That was a good summary.
of the direction we would probably kind of get, right?
Nancy, do you want to add anything?
I think you're all correct. We need to explore. It's not an either or an or, it's an and what can we do while we're waiting? I think in this best of all possible worlds, we would love to have a Mandarin immersion program. That's what I heard. But now has challenges that may be taking us off course to our core. And so what can we do while we're waiting for the timing to happen? How can we honor Asian languages and biliteracy of all of our families? So that's the direction I would like to do with the resources that we have available.
That was a good question. Yes. I like that.
What question?
Nancy, how'd you say that? Something about how do we, I don't know, someone can go back in the recording and her question was a good one. But it was like something about how do we support the bilingual families? It was worded.
With the resources that we have.
Yeah.
Resources that we have.
Yeah, and I guess I would also just like to, address the emotion that's got to be out there on the part of the families and everything as well, because I think that the timing is pretty terrible, honestly, to bring a new thing to the district. I mean, just from getting slammed with COVID right beforehand to the situation that we're in right now. But I really do hope that we can continue to respect the desire to really truly engage in a Asian language program, Mandarin immersion or other, but I'm guessing Mandarin, or other program.
Well, I'll just add on with that, right? I think, right, it has been, I mean, the timing has been such a bummer, but the people who came, right, in 2019 and 2020, right, right before COVID, right? I appreciate the engagement, right? I appreciate right, this is something we want to do, and I just want people to continue to engage on any topics, right, with the board. We can't always do exactly what people want when they want it, but we very much value and appreciate hearing from our community.
And thank you to the team for putting together the work that's been done so far. I mean, it's a phenomenal amount of work from everybody, right? So I just really appreciate you. And I know all of us do. So but on behalf of the board, it's definitely been a heavy lift. So and we're asking that it's not over. So sorry. But yeah, so thank you for your work on the presentation tonight, the executive summary, and for the feedback we're gonna get. Thanks. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. It's 7 o'clock, and Actually, just let me double check on the time on my computer. It's 7:01. We're gonna return at 7:06, so we're gonna just take a very quick recess. Thank you.
Charlie's wife is taking it.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Heather, how are you? Fine, thank you.
I don't know why I was so packed.
I know, I'm just like hoping that I'm going to ask. So many priorities. I mean, it's hard not to feel even if they said, our children are gonna need help, but our future, you know, if they say, okay, this is something 2025, we're going to look at. But it feels like we constantly like it's my priority. It's problem, there's threats. And this is the highest priority, but I think that's what they do. And it's not even, you know, previously children are told that are in need, that is the priority of course, but you know, they talk about providers, I don't know Chinese is very, I can speak from experience, my Chinese is terrible, because I did not have enough Chinese. A week or something. Yeah. Yeah. But thank you, I appreciate it. I mean, I'm interested in the focus program, I just need to, I have some, he's like, why would they
Once you realize it, you don't realize when you hang up, when you bend on it, then it moves. That's when you realize. You're gonna do this. Sure. And then you realize.
No, it's just that's problem.
Yeah.
Welcome back. It is 7:07 and I'm calling back to order the meeting of the Board of Education. We are on to item 4, comments from the board and superintendent. Since Nancy is not quite back yet, we can start with either Isabel or Michelle. Would either of you like to start?
I can go ahead. I don't really have much, just like the same regular things. I did go to the board office. I guess I should share a little bit about board office hours. Okay. We were at so Bridget and then Mike, he had to leave early for a meeting. We were over at Lakewood. I want to say Vargas. Vargas was the first one. Over at Lakewood and a good turnout again. I forgot to count. Did you count how many people?
So it was about a dozen.
Okay,
But
I was-
they kind of came and went a little
Yeah,
bit.
I forgot to count, but there was a good number of people. And we talked about a group came from, well, 2 people, parents in the district, but they're part of a group called Be Smart that's related to gun safety and gun education. So they talked with us. And then side note, I don't know if anyone is on the like Sunnyvale, I think it's the Nixle, the Department of Public Safety. Do you get those, Mike?
Yeah.
Anyways, an email literally just came today that Sunnyvale DPS has partnered with a different gun safety organization about those same, we were talking about gun lock, like locks, and how to get them for free, and DPS has them for free. I just thought the timing, like, I was like, oh, and I actually sent it to those women and said, hey, I just got this from DPS. But that was talked about a lot. And then the kind of towards the end of volunteering and about TVs and what's the other piece?
Fingerprinting.
Fingerprinting, thank you. And where the district's working on FAQs for that. There was like another, communication. So another big piece was communication and just that struggle, like people want more communication, but then they also get communication overload. And there's all these things we want to communicate to people and just that tricky space at a district level, at a school site level, the PTAs, how PTAs work together. Is there one other main topic?
I think the other just general idea was that they were looking for ways to come back together.
Yeah.
Like that families were really interested in like understanding, like just understanding like where other families were coming from. And like my thought on that was that they didn't necessarily know other people's struggles and they were wondering if the district had it covered, like, you know, like what's being said to that family or that kid or, you know, and then they just seemed sort of reassured to know that like that we're seeing this everywhere, you know, that kids, we talked about the academic gap and the social emotional pieces of that and different ways that the district is trying to intervene. And they just said, wow, it's really good to know that you guys are working on that. And they just sort of said, you know, it seemed to be, they just wanted to hear like that they wanted ways to connect with other parents who might be feeling similar social issues, like what to do when their kids are getting bullied or how to handle social media overload for their kids and all those parent education things we used to have in person or like at the district level or the school site level. And so it's, in a way, it's positive because they want to engage, you know, they're ready. So it's coming.
Yeah. And then I also attended with Mike the schools for semifinals, but I came to it late and know that we had a long board, it wasn't board office hours. And then, I mean, personal, but also connects to all of us. Like now that we're at Cumberland's walkathons tomorrow, so I'll be doing that all day. And I know that everyone got invitations. If you want to come and join, I will be there with my family.
Why don't we go back to Nancy? Thanks, Michelle.
Hi, I've been engaged in activities with the Santa Clara County School Board Association Legislative Action Committee, and also with the Local Planning Council of Santa Clara County with their group work. I wanted to let everybody know that there's going to be a study that we're going to be doing this year about childcare and childcare availability. Sunnyvale has been an area that has been underserved in the past, and so we are going to be reaching out and doing the demographic work to see how we are faring. Currently, things were kind of put on hold because of the pandemic, but we're going to be engaging in that. And there's also going to be a study about childcare providers. A lot of people left the profession because it was difficult to try and maintain childcare because families were working from home or left the area, and to see how many providers have actually shut down for good, or what resources are needed to have providers come back into the community to support families. So thank you.
Thank you. Isabel?
Yes, so, well, to start this week, if we have any programs that we can submit for the Hoffman Award, did you send the invitation a few days ago?
Great.
Very excited about that. Also, well, this Monday, we met with the Sunnyvale Art Club, Bridget and I, and we were talking a little bit about bringing more art to the schools. And one proposition, one option will be going around together. One proposition will be going around together and trying to find, like similar to the master plan, but something easier, like what kind of art we can bring to each school, which one will be first, like once a year we do some intervention, and in the different ways how that can happen. Like some of them might be like with the kids, some of them might be bringing an artist, or some of them might be something simpler, but I don't know, trying to find a way to bring art to the schools in collaboration with the City Art Club or Community Art Club. I don't know forgot how they call. So that would be great. And that was in association with the mayor that we did. Then last week also, and part of this week, I was very engaged with facilities, and Lori was also there, and we got together and saw a pool of architectural firms who are all very qualified and very good in educational facilities, and they have a lot of experience with green schools all around the community, and all of them are great in budgetary, a lot of experience, exactly what we want. So they were already, all of them were, any of them would be amazing for us. But then with facilities, we made a rubric and we talked with each of them. They exposed their works, 1 hour for each of them. And well, now we're shortening that pool to have teams to help us in the next project, which we know it will be SMS, hopefully. So yes, so we're probably going to have a few of them bring options for us. So that was already a lot of that. And there was something else. No, I think that's it, because the in-house collaborator meeting just canceled at that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I just have 2 quick things to say. I sent in all my stuff online, but at the Hoffman, or not the Hoffman, at the fall dinner next week on Wednesday, which a lot of us are going to, it's for trustees and superintendents. Sunnyvale Middle School's band, well, actually musicians, Mr. Anchetta is bringing he has a whole playlist planned, and he's gonna showcase his musicians. So he's bringing 12 musicians, and he said, when you arrive, there's not gonna be any people there, so we're gonna have the strings. And then later, when things really get going, we're gonna have the drums and the saxophone and whatever. And I'm like, he's got all these groups that are gonna play in 2s and 3s, and I need a keyboard there because, you know, you need, and I was just like, that sounds great. So I'm really excited, can't wait to see them, and
So we should be there early to listen.
come early, because we wanna hear the whole playlist, so that's very exciting. And also I did get to go to the ELAC and PTSA meeting at CMS last night. And I just wanna say I did a really fun activity where they had everybody in the meeting do some of the English learner and actually social emotional learning activity that they have their kids do. And I found out that being hopeful, you get 0 points, which I was very sad about. But so they did this whole activity, and I still wound up in a type of person that I was happy with, characteristics and attributes that I was happy with, because they were all positive, like every single, no matter how many points you got, it was positive. But it was so great because all the families were really engaged, and you know, people just responded to it very differently, and they're like, what do you mean cats are better than dogs, get more points than dogs, you know? And you could just see the conversations, and they had people talk about it, and it was just really good. And then he kind of brought it all back to, this is what we're doing, we're getting kids, you know, we're having them talk about themselves, like why this is like them, why those characteristics attribute to them, and like, you know, why, whether it does or not, you know, and have them think about and communicate that to people in small groups. And so it was just really positive, and the parents totally got it. Like it was awesome. So those are my 2 comments. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple quick things. First of all, Michelle, you forgot one thing, so I'm gonna bring it up. The Silicon Valley Leadership Group in San Jose State Forum
That was like
on, I know.
Anything past this week was a long week for me, so.
It was
So good.
It was really good. So the focus was diversity in teacher education. And San Jose State is doing some amazing things. They had some amazing speakers, including young people who have recently gone through the program, and they shared their experience as teachers representing a diverse workforce. So
And one of the teachers is the deaf teacher, right? So she had like
The
a cover there and
devices,
devices.
yeah.
So just cool to hear her experience, how she's done that.
So also the state dashboard will be published next week. Board, I'm going to send out to you this weekend or tomorrow a video from AXA that I think is pretty good, because it really puts the dashboard in context. And in a word, I would say it is a baseline. So that's the word to remember, that this is a baseline. And also remember, if you were to forget about a pandemic, if you were gonna have a year where kids were, I know I've said this before, were absent 10, 20, 30, 40 days, teachers were absent 10, 20, 30, 40 days at a time, these are exactly the results that you would expect. So we're not happy about them, we're not, and I'm talking about the whole state, right? We're not satisfied, but I can assure you, and there are educators in this room, everyone is working as hard as they possibly can with purpose and conviction and direction right now to do what we can to make a difference. So I'm really proud of us. Last thing I want to talk about a little bit is the Moffett Park specific plan, and I hope there are some people in the audience to hear this as well. I really appreciate how engaged the community has been around educational facilities just in Sunnyvale in general, in North Sunnyvale in particular. I know there's been a lot of conversation around a high school in North Sunnyvale. We are not the high school district. I will say that has been this is a personal opinion, that's a decades-long injustice, that there isn't a high school in North Sunnyvale. I believe that, and we now see how difficult it is to make that change. However, that's one thing. I want to talk about and have us as a school district have talking points for how absolutely critical it is that the city set aside space in Moffett Park for K-8 education. So what the city is describing is some 20,000 housing units, 20,000 housing units. They're not designed yet, so I don't know what population that will generate, but I would, if we just did math, what, 40,000, 50,000? So it's a huge percentage increase in the city of Sunnyvale. And remember, we're only a portion of the city of Sunnyvale. So this would have, or will have, an enormous impact on enrollment in Sunnyvale School District. If I had to throw an arrow, I'd say 2,000 TK through 8th grade students. That might be low, that might be high, I don't know. But it's a substantial number of students. So I'm gonna lay out two visions. One is a vision if nothing happens, right? If nothing happens, it's not hard to imagine 2,000 students crossing 237 every single day to get to Lakewood, Columbia. They won't fit, right? I mean, this is a very, it's a real situation. And the challenge is it's not gonna happen in one night, right? It's not gonna happen overnight. It's gonna happen over a series of years, but we have the advantage of foresight, and so we can anticipate this. And so we can imagine what 2,000 new students in North Sunnyvale would do to the schools in North Sunnyvale, and we can't accommodate. So the other vision is a better one, I think, and that is a TK through 8th grade school in Moffett Park that we would, and I've talked to some of the city staff. A concept is that we need the city council to adopt is that there would be a open space that could be used as a park or whatever, that when it is time for a school, and there will be time for a school, that school be built. We don't have resources to get new land. We will take on the responsibility of program and building a school. And that will be enormous because it will change the financial look of our school, of our district, because that's 2,000 more students. Potentially, maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's more, we don't know. Depends on the housing. But the vision would be a TK through 8th grade school in Moffett Park. What if it was Baylands Environmental Sciences Academy? What if it was Baylands, I just named it, we can come up with that name. Arts and Music. What if it was Baylands Modern Language Institute? But I imagine my vision is for a K through 8 school there, because really the vision that everything I've heard about Moffett Park is around a walkable community, because it's an enclosed community, like a modern planned community where all the resources are there for families. And I've said this before and I absolutely believe it. The heart of every community is its public schools, and especially the elementary schools. So I'll put those talking points sort of together for you, but I think that's what we need to be sharing with our community. I think I talked to the mayor today. Generally, I think the city council gets it, but we need to, staff gets it. We need to make sure that city council gets that message, because that's what they need to do for this community. And we'll do the rest. We'll develop the program and we'll build the school, but we need the land. So
I know we can't discuss at all this topic, but would this be something that would be appropriate to bring back, like as a board, like as an agenda item with a possible resolution?
Could be, yes, I think so.
So I would just throw that out as a possible future agenda item.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate to have a study about this and inform the board and the community about the plans. I think communication about this has been very insular. There's a little bit more awareness among some folks in North Sunnyvale, but it isn't really on people's radar. And I think we need, it's not just us as a board, but it's the community as well, the stakeholders that need to share about the importance. So I think a study session would elevate that. Michelle.
Maybe we could look at it in the context of like the size of our trustee areas as well, right? Like our trustee areas are 20,000 people, so. Yeah, okay.
There's lots of ways. It's gonna have an impact on everything.
Okay, perfect. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's great. Very informative. So it's time for comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association. If there's an official representative online, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none. Item 6, comments from the California School Employees Association. If there's an official representative online, please use the raise hand feature if you wish to speak. Seeing none, item 7, comments from the public. This is the time to comment about things that are not on the agenda. This portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the governing board on any item of interest to the public. However, provisions of the Brown Act Government Code 54954.2a and .3 preclude any action being taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. In plain speaking terms, the board can only receive information during this time, cannot speak to or about items not on our agenda. I do have one speaker card here. If you are online, you may also use the raised hand feature now. There's one online. Okay, we're going to do the speaker that's in person first. While Mr. Kroc is approaching the podium, let me just say that time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes for public comments. Speakers are asked to give their name and affiliation so that an accurate record is reflected in the minutes. As a reminder, by board policy 9323, the board shall not prohibit public criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, acts, or omissions. During public comment, we encourage speakers to discuss issues with civility, to treat people whose opinions differ from their own with respect, and to focus on ideas, policies, and values. So, Mr. Kroc, when you're ready, you may begin.
Okay, thank you. So I've come to talk about the risk of COVID-19, specifically the new escape variants, BQ1 and BQ1.1, which are able to overcome vaccination, able to overcome immunity from prior exposure. So we're expecting a new surge this fall and winter. And there are 3 measures I'd like the board and superintendent staff to consider. One is improving the placement of the HEPA filters in the classrooms. I really am grateful to all of you for making the installation of the portable HEPA filter devices happen. However, I've discovered that the placement in the rooms is often highly non-optimal because of lack of outlets. So to be effective, they need to be centrally located or maximally effective, and having them next to a wall, or as in my son's classroom, under a teacher's desk, cuts the effectiveness of these devices by about 50%. And the teachers know this is not the way it should be, the principal knows it's not the way it should be, but the problem is the fire marshal prohibits the use of extension cords. So, and there's a lack of outlets in the wall. So I realize it's not a trivial problem. And I got a response already from the Sunnyvale Department of Fire and Safety. And I can see they're focused like a laser on fire problems. I get it, but I don't think my son's going to die in a fire in a first floor classroom where they can all just walk out the doors, but all the children are at risk from long COVID. If they get, every time they get exposed, they have a percentage risk of long COVID, and the more exposure you get, the greater it is. So if the children are vaccinated, the risk is not death, the risk is not even hospitalization, it's long COVID. So we really need to look at upping our game because the virus is upping its game. So one is, let's try to improve the HEPA filter placement. The second is, I would love it if we would look at perhaps going back to mandatory masking in the classroom ahead of the surge instead of waiting for the surge to happen and then locking the door. I got a preview of what a variant surge can look like this last weekend at my high school reunion. The high school was shut. Why? Because 40 of the students out of a total student body of 325 were out sick with COVID at the same time, and they were trying to stop the further spread. If we don't find a way to block the spread, we can look forward to experiences like that at Sunnyvale schools as well this year. Finally, I'd like the school district to look seriously at the question of, could we do upper room germicidal UVC illumination? This is a proven, safe, effective technique that's been used for decades to prevent the spread of tuberculosis in hospital facilities and homeless shelters. It also kills viruses. It's perfectly safe. You position the ultraviolet lights in a box above the people's eyes. The ultraviolet beams go out and kill the virus, don't hurt anyone else. It is easily 4 times or more effective at killing the virus than even the best HEPA filters. So please look at those options. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and you can. Okay. So Yushan, whenever you're ready, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Can you guys hear me? I think my video is not working, but I'm a Sunnyvale resident, Yushan Chuang. I've been here for 20 plus years and have always been quite envious of other districts and their bilingual programs and other options. I love that we have Fairway, but it's limited to either a lottery or if you live in that area. I would love and would volunteer my own time to help out with these programs. And I think that's something we should consider. I know budget is always stated as one of the things, but if we look at all the kids going to private schools who are more able to and parents are more able to, it reduces the ability for us to offer a good, strong education to kids. It's also been shown in other countries. If you look at Europe, especially the Netherlands, where most kids actually are trilingual at minimum, they actually have better learning capacity, they have higher education, and overall just a general better literacy. And so regardless of what language the bilingual program is in, it's not just about being like certified and bilingual. It's about giving our kids an alternative way to think and helping them build the brain pathways. So I think, I would love to know, like at the next meeting or in notes, what that means out of the considerations of the next steps that were highlighted with the demographer, I think if I heard correctly, and also, budget, looking at what it would take, like how many kids would we need to have enrolled in such a program in order for a pilot to start? And if that's not possible, could there be an after school program that's piloted that is staffed by volunteers, but with like childcare? Because that might be a good pathway to choose instead of maybe a summer program. Because as we know, like languages need to be year round. We can't just have the kids learn in summer and then forget it during the school year. So I'm really just voicing my support for continuing to explore this program. And, I know that budgets are an issue, but it is important, and delaying it will just mean that we lose kids to other programs and other private schools. If you look around us, Stafford, a whole bunch of schools now have bilingual programs, and they're shown to be effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the queue? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much. Public comment is over. We are on to item 8, presentations. 8A is Sunnyvale Middle School. Principal Iwasaki and team.
Thanks. All right. While that's coming up, I want to thank Giovanni Bowie and Stephanie Malcolm, the assistant principals from Sunnyvale Middle, for coming out and supporting. And I think my wife's out there someplace too, so. And my parents, so. But anyway. Ready? All right, here we go. My name is Vince Iwasaki. This is my first year as principal at Sunnyvale Middle School, and let's go ahead and talk about the school some. Special thanks to Aaliyah for getting some great pictures set up for us. All right, so I'm going to do this as looking at our 4 primary initiatives happening at Sunnyvale Middle. The first is academic support time. Second is integrated ELD, intervention groups at 6th grade, and then co-teaching. So academic support time is a period in the school day following lunch for about 35 minutes. It has 3 primary objectives. It's an opportunity to teach common academic and SEL practices that benefit students across all classes. It's a time to provide academic support to students, and it's a place where teachers invest time in connecting with a specific group of students and families. And we'll go over each of these. So for academic support time, as a teacher, there's a zillion things that you want to do in addition to your content. It's things like, let's teach students about setting long-term goals. Let's teach them about how to monitor their progress towards those goals, reflecting on how they do with that. We want to talk about how do we use a planner? How do we keep track of our homework? What are some good homework practices? Beyond that, there are SEL practices that we want to have. When I'm feeling frustrated, what can I do? How do I know I'm feeling frustrated? And if I teach that as a math teacher in a classroom, and my buddy next door teaches that in their ELA room, and somebody else teaches something in science, it's going to be kind of spotty, and some of our practices may not be consistent with each other, which makes it hard to use those practices in every room. So what we do is we teach these practices in our AST classroom on Monday and Friday. And then those practices can be used in any room. So if I'm an ELA teacher, I can talk with students and say, hey, look, I know you're doing your long range planning goals in AST. What's your goal in my class, right? So when we have a kid who may be dysregulated in a room, the teacher can say, we've got, I know that we've covered 3 different methods of regulation in AST. Which one would you like to try right now? So it creates a toolbox that's accessible across the classes. The second thing is academic support time. So it's a time to provide content support to students. And so as we talked about on Monday, we have the SEL practice lesson. On Friday, there's an academic practice lesson. And then in between, we have academic content help and check-in time. So as a math teacher, I can call students to my classroom that I feel like are struggling with math or struggling with a particular concept. I can run a small group for them. If I'm a student and I say, my teacher's not calling me, but I want to go see my teacher, I talk to that teacher, they send the call slip for me, and then I'm able to go and work with them, okay? So there's an opportunity there to get some academic content help. For students who aren't going to other classrooms for help, they're working on their homework or some enrichment type activities, okay? For those of you who have students in high school, this academic support time looks a little bit like tutorial at the high school, where students are selecting teachers to go talk with. So they don't get to choose to go there, they gotta ask to go there. It's just a matter of keeping order, okay? A couple other things about this academic support time. The other thing it allows us to do, if I'm an English language learner, I am required to receive 30 minutes of designated ELD every day, right? Prior to something like this being in place, English language learners lost their opportunity to take an elective because they had to take ELD during that time. So what AST allows us to do is our English language learners receive their designated ELD time in that space. The designated ELD, you're thinking to yourself, but then they don't get the academic practices and the SEL practices. But the ELD teachers incorporate those academic practices and SEL practices into the designated ELD lessons. The thing that EL students miss out on is the thing that they miss out on is the ability to go to other classrooms for
Everyone
help.
actually is gonna see that on.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
I see. So it's my face that it's seeing. I get it. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. This is me not understanding the technology. My apologies.
You're good.
Okay. So the difficulty for the English language learners is they're not going to be able to get access to assistance in science and math and so forth. We feel like it's a reasonable trade-off. The goal is to bring them to full proficiency in English as quickly as possible because that will support them in all of their classes. The third part about academic support time. So if I'm a 7th or 8th grade teacher, I see about 150 kids a day. And if I'm seeing 150 kids a day, I don't care how good you are as a teacher, you're not going to build deep relationships with all 150 kids and get to know all 150 families. And so then it becomes well, gosh, if we're going to establish deep relationships with a family, how do I pick and choose those and how do we get consistent coverage? By creating AST with 20 to 25 students per class, it allows those teachers to focus on those 25 kids to get to know them well. So they're working with them on their goal setting, they're working with them on the SEL learning and everything else. And the long-term goal is that becomes the hub for knowing families as well. Okay. One of the things we did differently this year compared with last year the students were assigned to AST fairly randomly. And so the AST teacher may not have that child as a student in one of their other classes. This year, what we did, thanks to Miss Malcolm, is that we were able to put all of the students in the AST classes have that teacher at some other point during the day. So the teacher knows their academic practice through a class, and they get this extra time to work with them. Okay. Questions? Oh, I guess we should go through this part. So the reason we did this is the spring panorama data from last year. This is it for Sunnyvale Middle School on the question, how connected do you feel to adults at your school? Slightly or not at all connected was 38% of the respondents. Somewhat connected was 36%. And extremely or quite connected is 26%. And that green bar is where we want to be, right? We want students extremely or quite connected to their teachers because it improves the learning experience, it improves learning outcomes. So AST becoming a place where kids are well known, we expect to see substantial increases in connection between students and teachers. This is the same data broken down by language status, language acquisition status, and grade level. The interesting thing here is that across the board, blue is Sunnyvale Middle School, gray is the school district. So across the board, ELs have deeper relationship with their teachers than everybody else. Not necessarily what I would have expected. An interesting data point.
Because the English learners, like a lot of them are in the designated ELD class,
Yes.
like especially ELD
Yep.
1 and 2, right?
And so,
That's
yeah.
really a strong hub for 2 periods a day,
Yep.
every day, so.
Yep. That's the ELD 1 and 2 classes. That's about 45 kids for us this year. But I agree with you. I think the designated ELD classes historically have provided a place where those students are well known. And then in terms of the responses for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we can see that the level of connection drops precipitously from 6th to 7th grade. I attribute that to in 6th grade, we have cores. And so a student will be with the same teacher for ELA and social studies and a different teacher for math and science. They're with a teacher for twice as long. It leads to deeper relationship. When we go to 7th grade, suddenly I've got 6 different teachers. All right. For academic support time, our implementation, we used a good chunk of our first professional development day working on this. I have an AST work team that is developing the academic and SEL lessons. So that creates the consistency. It also means that I don't have 50 teachers trying to do the same thing, right? We ran professional development weekly during staff meeting for the first 2 months. We're going to be scaling that back as we focus on integrated ELD moving forward. And we also have modeling available from the AST work team. I'm not sure if you all want to do questions as we go, or this is the first
We
initiative.
can do clarifying questions
Sure.
if people have them as we go, but
Okay.
then there's a public comment period before our questions.
Great.
Alright.
Okay. All right. So integrated ELD is our next initiative. And this is who we are. So we have 964 in our total enrollment. English only is 46% of that. Initial fluent English proficient is 13%. Reclassified fluent English proficient is 25%, and English learner is 16%. What that means is that 41% of the students in our school took at one point, either took ELD classes at one point or are currently taking ELD classes. So integrated ELD is super important for them being able to have access to the content. There was a question regarding our LTELs versus newcomers and so forth. We have 2 essentially newcomer classes, ELD 1 and ELD 2. Those classes contain a total of, ELD 1's got 23 students in it, and those are students who have come with virtually no English. Some of them have hello, and we end right about there. ELD 2 has 18 students in it. Many of those students have had multiple years of English education in their host country prior to coming here. There are 11 languages spoken in that ELD2 classroom among 18 students. So it's a little bit challenging in there sometimes. With respect to the overall breakdown, we have about 105 long-term English learners, and that's defined as having been an English learner for 4 years or more. We have about 47 that are going to be, not long-term English language learners. Of the long-term English language learners, 70% of them are Latino, 30% are not. Of the newcomers, or that other group, the not long-term English language learners, about 60% are Latino and about 40% are not. I will say that for the long-term English language learners, about 40% of the Latino group and about 40% of the non-Latino group are also classified as students with disabilities. So they make up a substantial portion of that long-term English language learning group. Okay. All right, we'll go next. What's that? Oh, sorry.
It's another topic on our agenda.
Great.
It's coming.
There was a question on this slide. So what this slide shows is how students overall, so each of those percentages represents the percentage of students that Panorama says are on track for their grade level. So for SMS All students, it says 75% of students overall are on track academically. 87% are on track for attendance, 99% are on track for behavior, and 80% are on track for SEL, social emotional. So we can look at that as a breakdown by English proficiency. And obviously the most concerning there is for English learners. We're at 47% on track academically. And of greater concern for me is the 56% that are on track for SEL. What that SEL reflects is students' students' self-perception of their ability to be successful. And that's a function of not being able to access the content in the classroom and everything else. So integrated ELD is going to be super important to bridge that. So there are two types of ELD. There's designated ELD and integrated ELD. Designated ELD is where they go to a class with all English language learners, and we're working on specific grammar structures and so forth, right? Grammar structures, vocabulary, kind of the words that knit everything together. Designated ELD is designed to bridge that gap. And so in designated ELD, we do things like language objectives and structured student talk and explicit vocabulary development, sentence frames, other scaffolds. These are things that happen in the general education classroom. They don't happen in the EL classroom. They happen in a general education classroom. And the reason that we need it is because just working on the grammar structures and the vocabulary and so forth is not enough. Students to reclassify have to be able to navigate a general education classroom. So we want to put the structures in place that will help them navigate that way. Okay. What we also know is that these structures, they're not just good for English language learners. These are good for everybody. And so this is the second major initiative we're working on at Sunnyvale. The way we're supporting this, our last professional development day, this is what we focused on the entire day. We'll be working professional development actually it's going to end up being integrated ELD twisted my arm and they said, no, we want 3 of the staff meetings. So they get 3 of the staff meetings. And they'll also be supported through ongoing department collaboration. Our third initiative is the intervention groups at 6th grade. And this just tries to show students by cohort as they move through Sunnyvale Middle School. All right, so the yellow cohort That's our current sixth graders. 84% of them are on track academically. And we'll see what happens in 2023-24 and in 24-25 when they leave us. Our seventh graders are currently 70% are on track academically in the green, and 75% of them were on track academically when they came in as sixth graders. For eighth grade, 71% of our guys this year are on track academically. In seventh grade, 75% were on track, okay? What we see, both through the connection as well as some of the academic work, is that we see a significant drop off in academic performance at sixth grade compared with their fifth grade experience. Okay. So we want to close that gap. And the reason we're targeting the transition to middle school is hard. Sixth grade also has extra time to do this in. We're set up as an A and B period, right? So it's an A-B schedule. So there's an extra, in seventh grade, across 2 weeks, a teacher has 10 class periods to teach the ELA content. In sixth grade, they have 15 periods to teach the ELA content. So what we're doing is we're pulling 2 of those days back each week for a total of 4 to run intervention. Excuse me. We're also trying to build off the intervention that's used in the elementary school. The goal here is that we build out a strong intervention program at sixth grade this year. Next year, those sixth graders are prepared to move to seventh grade, right? When they move to seventh grade, they bring those intervention habits with them. Same thing moving from seventh grade to eighth grade. So over the next 3 years, we will have built the intervention out all the way through eighth grade. Thank you. You're just saving me there, huh, Steph? There was a question about, does this mean that we're not running intervention for eighth grade who are moving to high school? The answer is, there is some intervention that's in place there. Our direct student service TOSAs are providing some support at eighth grade. It is not as concentrated as it is at sixth grade. I feel like if we're going to build out the intervention program, we need to start someplace. We're going to start with sixth grade because there's more resources there. It's easier to get kids prepared, and then that can flow through the school and grow year by year. All right, the support that we have for teachers, we have a teaching coach, we have the direct student support TOSAs. We've also been allocated certain site-based subs, and so when those guys aren't subbing, we're using them as part of the intervention team. And we've created created additional collaboration time for teachers to work with the coaches and the TOSAs. All right, our last initiative, co-teaching. So co-teaching refers to when we have a content area teacher and a SPED teacher working together to teach a smaller classroom that includes a number of students with disabilities. Okay. So our total number of students with disabilities on campus is about 10%, and we can see the difference in overall performance compared with the general population. So best practices for students with disabilities place them in general education classrooms where they have access to the grade level content. And all of the research, all of the data says they perform better in that situation. The exceptions to that are students who have super high needs. Those guys are pulled out for specialized academic instruction classes or self-contained classes. Let's see. Yeah, keep going. All right. In its best form, co-teaching looks like general education teachers and special education teachers teaching together in the classroom. My daughter happens to be in one of those classrooms, and I asked her how her day at school went. And she said, "I love my first period class." And I said, "Why do you love your first period class?" And she said, "Because I have 2 teachers." And she did not distinguish between the special education teacher and the general education teacher, which is exactly where we want to be. For this year, we've got 1 ELA and 1 one co-taught ELA and one co-taught math class in 6th grade. We have a lot more co-taught classes in 7th grade and in 8th grade. Those classes are also slightly smaller. They're going to be 20 to 22 students. And so there's an we're working to build the co-teaching plan. The support we have, I think the biggest change in support, co-teaching's been done at Sunnyvale Middle for the last 4 years. But I think the biggest change that happened this year is the district office contracted with Dr. Love, and that's a great name. But they contracted with Dr. Love to come and provide direct support to our teachers. And so he met with all of our teachers for about 4 hours prior to the school year beginning. And he was on campus Tuesday and Wednesday this past week. Tuesday and Wednesday this past week, observing all of the co-teaching teams and debriefing with them. He'll continue to do that on a monthly basis. These are our SMART initiatives there as seen through the different lenses of the district. There were a few other questions that were asked, so let me go ahead and answer those, and then I'll take whatever questions you have. One of the questions was, how is lunch going? It's going well. It has been a point of concern from many parents. And it's not socially or anything, it's because of the wait times to get food. And so we've been timing it. We time it 2 or 3 times a week. And our average times are about 12 minutes on the lines. By 12 minutes, the lines are dissipated, with the exception of Thursday. Thursday is pizza day, and it will run 15 to 17 minutes on the lines. And that's just the nature of pizza day.
How many minutes do they get?
30 minutes, plus a 4-minute passing period at the end. So if you're the last kid coming through, you got about 14 minutes to eat your pizza. I will say in my observation of kids, it does not take 14 minutes for them to eat that pizza. So there was another question about, socioeconomically disadvantaged students. This year's data is not necessarily accurate. I pulled from Panorama. It says we have 80 out of 964 students. I know that's not correct. And the reason is because that data is pulled from the free and reduced lunch applications. And we're in the middle of a hard push to get as many of those in as we can. What I did is I went back a couple of years prior to the pandemic to look at what the percentage was at that time. It's about 20%. And I looked at several years, it is consistently about 20%. There was another question, what's happening after school or before school in terms of tutoring activities and clubs? Right now, our primary outside of school activity is after school sports. We field a number of teams, they're doing very well. We're excited about that. Obviously, we would like to expand the offerings. We do not have a KLAS program after school. And so we are working to put some things together. A couple of things we're working on. I expect a rudimentary homework center to be in place by about mid-November. I am working with Homestead and Fremont High Schools to recruit tutors that we will train and we will supervise as they work with our students. I'm also working with them to bring in a variety of clubs from their schools to work with us. I think there's a lot of opportunities for some great after-school clubs led by high school students and supervised by Sunnyvale Middle School staff. So we're working on that aspect. We do have a PTSA parent that's running a garden club for us, and I had a parent volunteer to run either a coding club or an engineering club. So we'll be working on those. Let's see. I think that's the questions that I was asked, so I'll open up the questions.
Commit.
Is it your computer involved?
No,
I think it's it sounds like it's.
No, this iPad is talking to me, which is why I'm hearing myself on a
Yeah,
tape
that's
delay.
like so hard for you,
From there.
sorry.
Yeah.
You're supposed to put the volume up on that.
Yeah, it's down as low as it'll go. Yeah, sorry.
You did great having to deal with listening to your echo.
That's why I tried to turn it, but it didn't work, so it's okay. But what questions can I apologize, what questions can I answer for y'all?
Okay, first, we're gonna open up to public comment, which is just an opportunity for the public. If they would like to ask a question on your presentation. I don't see members of the public here, so if anyone would like to comment on the presentation, please use the raise hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, board, any questions or thoughts for Vince? Principal Iwasak, sorry.
That's fine.
No questions, just appreciate all the information and all that you guys are doing out there.
Well, we're looking forward to, I almost wish we could come back at the end of the year and talk with you about what we're doing, because I think that's gonna show how far we've moved and things like that. I do think we're making good progress. I'm excited about the opportunities in the year.
Yeah, you can share the progress with Mike and he can pass it on to us.
All right, I can do that.
We'd love to hear it.
And also, I think like, as you have more community events or you have, I know in past years, we've had presentations like theater groups have come through or things like that. Like, I'd love to come to some events on campus. And also, I just want to commend your whole staff. Like, I mean, I know it's a real team effort this year, and everyone seems real excited and energized with you there as leaders and just for all the work ahead. So
Staff's working hard. I'm super grateful to Giovanni and Steph, because what I love about working with them in particular is that I have complete trust in I feel like we are very consistent in our philosophy of school and our belief in kids and all of those things. And so it's just super helpful to have such a strong leadership team. And then we've had a lot of teachers who are stepping up into leadership roles and helping to lead different aspects of the program. And the rest of the teachers have been receptive to the good work, to the work, and are putting in good work on this, so.
thanks. I hope we do get a KLAS there. There's 200 kids, ish.
Yes, of course, we're very excited about what you're doing and we're really looking forward to see the wonderful things to come. And thank you for all this very in-depth presentation. So these co-teaching classrooms, they do have a bigger percentage of IEPs.
Yes, and so they'll have 5 to 7 students with IEPs in that room. And so, it's gonna comprise 25%, 25 to 30, 35% in the room. The idea being that the general education teacher is very much a master of content. Special education teachers have high specialty in making content accessible to all students. And by working together, they make everything more accessible for everyone. 2 teachers in the room provides additional opportunities to provide support, so, yeah.
And then also you explained that now Mondays and Friday, the students in all the classroom gets a consistent curriculum for social emotional learning and regulation. So all the teachers are on the same page. That's the plan.
Yeah, and so that happens during our AST time. And so on Mondays, it's an SEL piece, and on Fridays it'll be an academic piece. There are some weeks where they're both SEL and some weeks they're both academic. When we hit the end of the trimester, they're both going to be academic for a couple of weeks until we get the goal setting finished with kids. So.
And also historically, on SMS at least, there have been always a waiting list on chat and psychologists and counseling. How are we doing this year? I know that they changed a little bit the way how we're doing chat. We do have a new psychologist on board full-time for SMS. So how is that working out so far?
First, I'm super grateful to have 2 social workers on site. That's been a blessing, and it's allowed us to handle a lot of the crisis social emotional situations that arise. With respect to the wait list, when I checked with them earlier this week, wait list was about 30 students for chat counseling. And so that's the social workers really provide crisis, and we're working with them to provide some small group. But the ongoing the ongoing long-term counseling tends to happen through chat, through our interns, through our through other personnel. And right now we've got a wait list of about 30 kids.
And is that a vegetarian problem, or is we don't have enough? They don't have enough interest for us or space? What are the constraints to fix that?
I'll let Tasha take that.
We have a few challenges. One is space, but Vince, through his work with the team, we are in the early stages of a wellness center. We are looking for staff for that wellness center, but with that wellness center, it will support that. And we have usually had an ongoing problem because of space, but we have now developed some spaces, but now it's the staffing, finding the staff for that. And interns have been ongoing challenge as well because of the types of counseling we need and the level of support. It's sometimes outside of what the interns have been able to provide as well. So it's a combination of things, but we're moving in the right direction. And once we can really get the staff to staff that wellness center at Sunnyvale Middle, that's gonna, I think, really move us forward in our mental health supports to the campus.
And where is that gonna be, the wellness center? Where are you located in Ocasio?
It is directly across from the cafeteria area behind the tree.
I have an issue with the tree, but it is the best. It's right next to the library. It's the best available classroom on it. It's the most accessible space on the campus that we had, and I think it's going to be phenomenal. I really appreciate Dr. Dean and her team for making that possible, because I think it will be a game changer for us.
Is that with the partnership with the county? Yeah.
Yes.
Will it be a partnership with Sunnyvale Community Services for
Well,
support?
we have a few things going on, and you'll hear a lot more about that in a couple of weeks, but so we have the mental health grants, and that's where the funding source is coming from, and we're doing it in collaboration with the county. So the social workers and the liaison that will staff the wellness center are coming to us through the county. Some of the other supports we're providing will be coming through the district and through the site. And that also will be a part of the planning we're doing this year in developing our knowledge about what it means to be a community school. And so that's a part of this work as well. So we're doing it in phases. It'll all eventually come together, but those are some phases that are coming.
And in the integrated path, what you're doing is that the integrated path for the ELTs is that you are teaching all the teachers to support during their own classroom to the newcomers and kids who are long-term.
That's correct. And so when we did our professional development on this last Monday, every teacher left with a list of some practices that they're implementing in their rooms. Each department selected one or two structured student talk techniques that they're going to be implementing across their department. So.
What do you need from us? How can we help you? Do you have a wish list or something that we can try to figure it out? I don't know.
I'll just leave it with, I know that everything is being done to upgrade facilities as quickly as humanly possible, but I will say that if there are any of my 6th grade parents out there, they're going to say, if you don't mention HVAC, we're going to blow up your email. So I'm just going to say HVAC and see, Wayne, but I also know that's in the works, and it's planned for the future.
We just have new upgrades on the HVAC.
Sunnyvale Middle School has a number of classrooms, including the whole 6th grade wing that don't have air conditioning. Yeah.
And the whole set by the music.
Yeah.
I will say that I've greatly appreciated the amount of support that the Sunnyvale School District places in the schools, both from a personnel perspective, especially from a personnel perspective, right? So.
Yeah, but I think Isabel, you still have a few more things, so it's okay. Like I said, it's Isabel's time, and Nancy, I do see your hand, thank you. Go ahead.
And wait, I lost my my chain of thought for a second. But yes, and what are the plans to work with the connectivity of the kids to feel supported? Who doesn't feel enough support on adults, because it's a complicated time, they're growing, it's not the same as elementary school, they do need to feel confident to find help in the grown-ups.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if you ask any middle school kid directly, are you connected to the adults on campus? They'd be saying, yeah, it's fine. So the AST time is really that time that we're working on building those deeper connections. And a teacher sitting down and working with them on their goals, working with them through some of these skills that are portable across different classrooms. I do think that's going to deepen that. We are working with the school site council. Our student representatives are interested in putting some surveys out that will try and find some of that information out a little bit more. So I'm not sure. I think it's always hard to ask, but I think we can craft some surveys to find out, and we can also see just like how kids are doing. So it's something we're looking at.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Nancy?
Not questions per se, but I appreciate that you're taking on a lot of reorganization within the school site and some leveraging initiatives. I'll be excited to see what your data shows later on. And yes, please, if you have updates or other, please funnel them through the superintendent. We do enjoy moving through the additional parts of the year. It's always challenging being first up at the very beginning of the year, especially as a new principal. We appreciate your presentation and your thoughtful consideration of data. So welcome aboard and thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, team.
Can't wait to see the musicians Wednesday.
Yes, you'll see the musicians Wednesday.
Thanks.
Great job.
Okay, can we have the iPad shut off? Because I think it's still,
Yeah, yeah, the volume should be off and the microphone should be off.
I feel like it happens in some of our meetings and at some of our meetings it doesn't, like that feedback. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you have to turn the microphone of the iPad off.
It is on.
Then I have no
or the
other comments.
speaker, or the volume.
I don't know.
Okay,
Jeremy can fix it.
we are on to, where are we? We're on to 9. Item 9, review and action. 9A is approval of the 2022 significant disproportionality comprehensive coordinated early intervening services. I must have typed that wrong. Intervention services plan, CCEIS. Is Linda here, or are you presenting? Oh, hi, Linda. Hi.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yeah, and I apologize, board, for not being there in person. I'm a bit under the weather, so I'm talking to you from my home this evening.
Thank you for staying away.
It's just a headache. Tonight I do present to you the 2022 CCEIS plan, which stands for Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervening Services Plan. And just as a brief background, every year the California Department of Ed reviews the data for our students with IEPs. And for the academic year 21-22 in Sunnyvale, the data revealed that we have, for the third year, over-identified our Hispanic students as needing support in special education for a specific learning disability. And in this case, reading and mathematics intervention. So in response to this, the school district must develop a plan to address this need. And it's early intervening because we want to intervene with the students before they need special education support. And to make this plan, which will run through September 2024, once it's approved by the CDE, we reviewed the data of our current students with IEPs. We considered what grade level do they become eligible, which school sites, what was done before they became eligible, was there discipline or attendance problems? And then we looked at our practices for students who are struggling readers in general. What does MTSS look like? What supports are going on? What curriculum are we using? And we also looked at our current supports through the LCAP board policies, and we developed some action steps, things that we feel we could do to help prevent students from rising to the level of needing special education support. Because it is our third year of looking at this student group, we've already had some interventions in place, and we could see what is working, what's showing traction, and maybe what's not, and how we can refine those action steps. There's a budget attached to it, and each quarter we present a status report to the California Department of Ed, and also SELPA, the Santa Clara County Office of Education Special Education Department. So I do ask and recommend that the board approves the 2022 Significant Disproportionality Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervening Services Plan. And I would be very happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. It's time for public comment. If there's any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing board, Nancy, you have your hand up.
You're muted, Nancy.
I'm moving to approve the 2022 Significantly Disproportional Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervening Services Plan.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion?
Yes. So what are the difference in the plan that you are doing this year in difference to last year, and what did you learn from last year that wasn't working that well?
Yeah, a challenging thing about the plan is that we're given such a small amount of time to implement the steps that we've identified before the next year's plan rolls around. So although we are definitely showing that our students are moving through Tier 1 and Tier 2 MTSS and not needing to rise to the level of special education, the reporting is such that we don't really have time to fully implement the plan before we're held accountable for the same group of students. So it is working. Our number of students within that disproportionality group has been shrinking each of the 3 years. And so the things that we have tweaked a little bit is that we've really created some more space for small group intervention. And we've identified really focusing on kindergarten, first and second grades to work on those pre-reading and math, those early reading and math skills. So I think it is working. We just needed a little more time to implement those action items.
Did you add a school site? Did I see that you added, or there was something that you added, you were doing at one site and you added at another?
Yeah, we changed school sites and we always want to tweak it for what the data guides us. And so while Ellis and Vargas were sites that we have been working with last year, we're going to add San Miguel this year. And with that, because San Miguel has our Juntos program, it's really opened up a discussion of making sure that we are providing intervention in both languages to be equitable. And so Lakewood this year, they're still getting support from last year's plan because they run concurrently, but Lakewood scores did not reveal disproportionality in identifying Hispanic students in this area.
What about Bishop?
Bishop does not show that there disproportionality between the percentage of Hispanic students on campus and the percent in the category specific learning disability.
Okay. And what is the difference that you say that is going to start applying in 2024? That we already have 4 years into the program, and then what's going to happen?
I'm sorry, could you restate the question?
Oh, that you mentioned that this program will take a different turn in 2024 because we're going to be already 4 years into the program and the program is still there. So what is going to change? We're going to have more
Like
resources?
if we hit 4 years of the same problem, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to answer 2 things, if you don't mind. While this plan does end in September 2024, because it's a 27-month plan, part of the purpose of the plan is finding out things that work so we can implement it throughout the district in longevity. But if we find that we are disproportionate again for the 22-23 school year, then we will still be working on a plan similar to this one. The state of California will probably have a few more questions for us and just a little more oversight in the plan. I think it's a tricky time because we have students coming back from the distance learning, and we're getting students about that age range that have barely been in school. They don't have the preschool experience or kindergarten perhaps. And it is my hope that the CDE recognizes the impact. We are having higher number of students in special ed, and it's expected. Students need more support. So we'll see what the future brings, but it will bring a little bit more, just more questions from the California Department of Ed. Nancy?
Yes, you had indicated that it's challenging because of the timeline for reporting. If you had a magic wand, what would be a realistic timeline reporting cycle so that you could see or get at least 75%? We always want 100, but 75% of your initiatives cycled through?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So the plan was approved, last year's plan was approved in January. We submitted it about 3 or 4 months before that. But the California Department of Ed didn't approve the plan until a whole quarter into that cycle. And so then we just had a few months before they ran the data again. And so some of the problem is a turnaround time, and we cannot implement the plan and use those funds until it is approved. But I think my wish, if I got my magic wand out, I seem to have misplaced it.
Sorry.
Would be that we would set a plan, and instead of doing it every year, that they would give us 2 years, and then if it's making progress and we are showing that it's working, instead of penalizing us by, we spent hours and hours, and it's good information, but having 2 plans back to back so quickly, it doesn't change that much. The student body doesn't change that much. Mm-hmm. We did consider discipline this year to see if it was a factor, and it wasn't. So they don't give us time to make it work before asking us to redo it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, because it's an important story to tell our legislators that we want to be accountable, and we want to be informed by data, but you're not giving us enough time to actually implement the plan, and a 2-year cycle may be more realistic in giving more longitudinal data about effectiveness. So thank you.
some grace if it's showing that we are,
Grace.
you know, if we're moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
What kind of training, I know that this year we're doing a lot of new equity and anti-racist training, and it already started, but what kind of training have we already done in the lower grades to kind of not follow into the same patterns of over diagnosing kids? And I mean, what was the path that we already work on this to try to make it better?
You know, when we looked at the data for the students that were identified, we looked at every single psychoeducational report, and we looked to make sure that the report did consider the home language. You know, we always say, if you're learning a language, it doesn't mean you have a disability. And we're very careful. And what we found, I was so proud of our team. What we found is that the children that are in special ed truly, truly qualified. They need the support. The challenge is, so our teams, I think, are identifying fairly. I know they are. The challenge here comes in that we need to do that early intervention, that early intervening services to give those that need the extra support, that extra support. And I hope I'm answering your question, but it's a matter of, and we did want to make sure that we weren't, that we were considering the cultural and linguistic factors, and we sure were. We were doing a pretty darn good job. It's just they need so much support when they come in. That gap is so wide when they step their foot into the door. Does that answer your question?
And I wanna add to that, and Linda's been leading this work, and one of the big things that Linda has really advocated for is to have more of our team aware of what this really means. And so she's really pushed that forth. And I think by doing that and having our curriculum, our ELD focused team members being more aware of what this means, so we can get to the early sooner. And so I think by Linda really pushing that coordination for us as a team has really been valuable. And I think what will come from this, we don't know, we're making a prediction, but the things that Linda with the team that's worked with her to put the plan in place, what we see is working, we're trying to also share with other places so that they begin to do the things that we see are working, like the use of our paraeducators, for example, or some targeted after school work, or whatever the things that we have measured that we can actually see is working. We're trying to put that in place in other places. And then the other piece of what we're trying to do this year with the new plan is some of the elements, while it's targeted for a particular school, we're looking at that through the lens of some of our other campuses. And actually we're in discussion now about how we can intervene at a couple of spots in our district that we know we need some significant supports. So those are just some other things, even though it's not tied to the plan, it is indirectly, because we definitely see we have a much more significant need in this particular area.
I had a clarifying question. So Linda, you mentioned that this is about the 1-year cycle thing. So you mentioned that you know, you don't get the plan approved until January, and then you have to wait to implement it. But then during that first part of the school year, when you're doing all the meetings, is everybody still doing the previous year's plan?
Yeah, they do overlap.
Yeah, so in theory, you're getting new information and it is a big hassle and you're gonna readjust, but you're still doing, you're completing and continuing the work from before. So it's not like it's not like the kids aren't doing anything from
True.
August to January. They're like still, so the kids in theory are still like getting the benefit of the previous year's plan. The new tweaks can't be put in, but that's because you're just getting that new information. Is that right?
That's true. The first year 1 plan, the one that was approved late in this, you know, or early in the new year, part of the plan that very first year involved defining our cut points for which kids need intervention. So it took, part of the plan was developing the framework to identify the kids so that the therapy for the kids didn't start right away.
Mhm.
So that first year it was, what measures are we gonna use in every single school when the kids come into kindergarten, TK, and those are the kids that get intervention. And then we gotta train the teachers how to use the cut points. And then, okay, now we know who they are. What intervention are we gonna do? So that first year plan that we did, a lot of it was the prep work, but you're right, the second year, which was last year when we came back, right, from distance learning, that's when we could really hit the interventions identified with a fully informed staff and good resources. So as we are now into our third year, we do have a good full year of, almost a full year of really getting those things going.
With a lot of absences and all that other stuff, right? Interruptions, yeah. Right, yeah.
There's been a couple roadblocks, but
yeah,
got my magic wand. We got this.
Michelle, do you have anything you want to add? Okay, so are we ready to vote on this board? Feel good? Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion is passed. Thank you very much, Linda. Appreciate
Thank you,
your-
Linda.
Good night,
Thanks, Linda.
everyone.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks so much, Tasha. Okay, we're on to, I'm just like waving at people, I'm getting a little tired here, sorry. Woo, all right, we are on to 9B, which is adoption of the living land acknowledgement. Dr. Dean.
Yes, thank you. Bringing this item back, we talked about it in our previous meeting, trying to bring a version that would be able to be captured at each of our board meetings. So we've made some revisions to that. But just some additional information, we are putting some additional time into this and trying to learn more about this community, where are they, and make those connections. We haven't made direct connections yet, but we've made some indirect with people at the county office, and so we're continuing to work on that. But we do have sufficient input. We feel that this is the right direction for us to go, but we're trying to cultivate it as well, and just wanted to share that additional information. So coming with the board recommendation to adopt the living land acknowledgement, and this would be the abbreviated form of our entire package as it relates to land acknowledgement.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this item? You please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, board, do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the adoption of the living land acknowledgement.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Michelle.
I want to be clear that it's the one that was handed out that you have in front of you. That's different than what was in the board packet.
The amended.
We made the amendments.
Oh, I had a question. It says for, in one of them, the one online it says for thousands of years, and the one here it says for 8,000 years.
Yeah.
Was there some change? I think, or we'll just leave it thousands of years, for thousands of years.
We get to decide.
I mean, I think maybe it was probably me when I was like typing around.
I thought
For
about
thousands of years.
Okay,
thousands in total.
Yeah,
thousands of years.
yeah, sorry.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, board, any discussion or thoughts you
For
want to
that slight adjustment, do we need to change the motion?
We can do it when we're actually approving it.
Well, but the motion was made, so that's my question. If we're changing a word, we need to
I think we can
adjust
just,
our motion.
but I think we can discuss it and
In
then,
case there's any other
and then,
changes.
and in case there's any other changes, and if
Yeah.
we wanna make any amendments, then we just do it all at once.
Yeah.
So I have one thing to consider. And I just thought of this because I saw another living land acknowledgement. And it was important that we use the present tense, okay? So the first sentence, Sunnyvale School District is located on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe who have peacefully honored, as opposed to having who peacefully honored, it makes it sound like it's all in the past tense. I think if you add the word have, it makes it continuing.
Yeah, I like that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yay, English majors. Sorry, no offense to other people who are not English majors, but it's just like, we get it, applaud the skill. Give it a chance, because I hear all the time about math. Okay. All right.
You want to talk through that?
No,
Okay.
maybe later. Okay, Nancy.
Yes. So there's new legislation that was passed about having curriculum appropriate centric to indigenous people, tribes that passed, and the Legislative Action Committee is going to be presenting to the Santa Clara County School Boards Association to move forward with inviting the county to set up a task force to develop the curriculum around the Ohlone peoples as appropriate. And I'm hoping that we would, as an outcome of this working group, that could be another way that we could actually make connections and see if our thoughts about this can be validated with current tribal members.
Yeah,
So-
Jorge Pacheco on the Ledge Action Committee is really active and interested. He brought this indigenous peoples issue forward, and he's already talked to Dr. Dewan about it, and Dr. Dewan is very excited about a task force, but it sounded like they could use some encouragement. So I think we'll have curriculum at some point that's very specific around the Muwekma Ohlone people. So Nancy had mentioned, I think the last time we talked about this, about the need for some curriculum to dovetail into the discussion about a living land acknowledgement, especially if it went out to the schools at some point. So I think it's great. I think that that's really positive.
I have a question, so I guess I had assumed it was a district-wide that our third graders learn about the Ohlone.
It's statewide.
So what,
Or that
what I'm saying in our district, why do we need curriculum if we have curriculum?
Right, so I think that that the idea is that sometimes the curriculum that we get from the state about, like, about different tribes, actually the state never really mentions, the state does not mention Ohlone in their, like in our textbooks, in our third grade textbooks, the Ohlone tribe is not mentioned, right? They do Yurok and they do some of these bigger tribes, and our third grade teachers talk about the Ohlone tribes, right? And to go on field trips and stuff. So this would be a way for like our county office of education to actually develop some curriculum with the tribe, with the Ohlone tribe, that is sensitive and appropriate and all that other stuff.
A good idea.
Exciting. It's really cool. So
Yeah.
I think
Well, if we're doing it, so even though third grade is the touch point, if we're doing living land acknowledgement at school sites and we're talking about a much wider range of students who may or may not have been in or will be in our third grade class. So we need to have some kind of on a simpler basis, some appropriate information that we can share for younger grade levels and also for older grade levels for students who may not have been a part of that third grade curriculum in our area that spoke to that. So I'm looking forward to more than just the third grade curriculum, but also opportunities for describing the why we're doing the living land acknowledgement and why it's important.
So the idea is some education to go out with this living land acknowledgement.
Correct. About the why it's why it's important.
okay, are we ready to vote? We could modify the.
So I just want to share one
Yes,
thought.
absolutely.
So I will vote yes. My hesitation is we haven't spoke with an Ohlone person, right? So I'm gonna say yes because I think we're okay, but I just do feel a little bit, right? Like, I don't know what the right word is, but I just am a little bit hesitant to move forward doing something.
You're humble.
Without talking to the people we're doing it about. But I know we're working on it, so that's why I'm saying I I'm fine, I just
Yeah,
I wanted
I
to
appreciate that, and I was.
articulate this piece that
I was
talked
thinking
about that
about,
last
I was thinking about that too, and what my recommendation would be, which is I think what the board, where the board's gonna go, is that we approve it with the understanding that as we get feedback and more information, we can always come back and revise or change, right? So I have that
Yeah.
open mind about it.
And I know we have been
We're trying.
putting lots of efforts into and.
So that means that we can start using this next week or next time, if we approve it today, and then we can just make it better as needed.
Yep.
Or if for some reason we hear from the loaning and they say, please don't do it or something. I don't think
Yeah,
they will,
I know,
but
we
in
can
case,
modify
right?
it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's just, last time we talked about that same issue, last time we talked about this, and the response then as well was that this is a living land acknowledgement, and the idea is that it would be continually revised and reinvestigated. Okay, so I think we need to revise the motion second. So.
Okay, so I move to the adoption of living land acknowledgement with the two grammar changes that were made.
And I second the amended motion.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. With that, the motion has passed, and we look forward to putting that on the next agenda. We're on to item 10, the consent agenda. Any item on the consent agenda is subject to review and discussion prior to being approved by the board. If necessary, any items may be removed for separate action. The public may address the board regarding any items on the consent agenda. If there's a member of the public who would like to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Seeing none, would the board like to pull any item for separate consideration and vote, or make a motion?
And move approval of the consent agenda items as listed.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Nancy, your hand's raised? No? Okay, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the consent agenda is passed. There is an information agenda item with the Williams Uniform Complaints Settlement Quarterly Report and the Administrative Regulation 6158 regarding independent study. We're on to item 12, public comments on closed session items. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on closed session items, please use the raised hand feature now. Am I correct? Are we on item 12?
Yep.
Okay.
No public comment, right?
There's no public comment? There's no one raising their hand. Okay, I'm like, wait, did I write this down?
Oh, sorry, no, I was asking her like not
Okay.
to do it, sorry.
Excellent. Okay.
It's where you off, Bridget.
Excellent. Okay, so item 13, we will convene to closed session. We are going to, I think I copied this wrong. We're just going to discuss public employee performance evaluation for the superintendent. And it is 8:45 and we're convening to closed session. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
We're going to close session, Margola.
Thank you, good night.
Thank you.
Lori has to stay. Just kidding.
Oh my God, that was me. I was like, I love the facial, Lori. I love the facial. All right. She's like, what?
The pumpkin festival, is a half a day or?
Yeah, it's my first time. I'm super excited.
Oh, great. It's gonna be a.
Do you have a booth there or you're going to it?
No, my friend Karen and I have birthdays and marching lines and stuff.
That's such a fun idea, I love that.
That's what I told him, it's great.
Monica, Margola, thank you very much.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you, Monica.
Yes, thank you.
When you get back, we'll talk. Okay, have a fun.
Okay. It is, I don't know what time it is, 9:51, and we are reconvening to open session. This meeting is no longer available in English and Spanish. The board met in closed session to conference with to discuss employee superintendent evaluation. No action was taken. Our next meeting will be Thursday, or item 15, future meetings and adjournment. Our next meeting will be Thursday, November 3rd at 6:00 PM at the district office. And it is now, sorry, what time?
5:52.
What?
I said 52.
9:52. I thought you said 5:52.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, excellent. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you.